If you fly over the coastal dune belt of the Namib Desert in southwest Africa, for hundreds of kilometers, you'll see almost nothing but sand. But eventually, you'll come across these. Hundreds of thousands of bare circles surrounded by grass, like a tile mosaic in the middle of the desert. It's almost like someone or something made this elaborate pattern. But what? For more than 50 years, scientists have been trying to figure that out. It's probably not a mythical dragon with poison breath, a story possibly cooked up by local tour guides, and it's definitely not aliens. But how can a design this massive and precise show up without anyone or anything in charge? And why are we suddenly finding more of them elsewhere? Scientists have seen bare patches in grass before, caused by termite mounds, gas leaks, things like that, but nothing like the Namib's fairy circles. They only seem to form in this one sliver of desert that gets between 50 and 100 millimeters of rain a year. And along this sliver, hundreds of thousands of circles, ranging in size from 2 to 35 meters wide, line up in a suspiciously organized pattern where each circle has about 6 neighbors. Researchers started looking for scientific explanations back in the 1970s, but for the first few decades, they came up empty. One guy suggested that fairy circles were old, eroded termite mounds. Another proposed they were caused by poisonous plants that had died and released their poison into the soil. Still more wondered if gases rising up from the earth were killing off the grass. But based on all the gathered evidence, there was no consensus for any of these ideas. So scientists eventually came up with some fresh ones, and by the 2010s, the search for an explanation became a full-on debate. Science beef! Science beef! In 2013, one researcher thought he'd cracked it. After studying hundreds of fairy circles, he found one thing they all had in common: sand termites. These tiny insects build elaborate underground nests, and as they tunnel through the ground, they eat the roots of freshly sprouted grasses. By killing plants that would otherwise suck up all the groundwater, termites create their own personal oasis. The researcher also proposed they consistently munch on the grass roots at the edge of the circle, widening the whole shape slowly over time. Eventually, these termites run into neighboring nests, all doing the same thing. And instead of battling or merging into one mega colony, they all just stop expanding, leaving a kind of demilitarized zone between them and capping how big each circle can get. So, mystery solved, right? Well, another camp of researchers wasn't so sure, mainly because they didn't find termite nests at all when they dug up some of these circles. They mostly just found sand. Plus, even if there were termites burrowed somewhere in there, this camp of researchers just didn't see why termites would only create fairy circles in this narrow strip of the Namib Desert, since they lived all over it. So instead, they put a new idea out there. Fairy circles arise naturally as plants compete for water. The bare patches represent the spots where competition is the highest. There's not enough water to go around, and the grasses die off. But wherever the grasses die, water can start pooling underground without roots sucking it up, meaning eventually a new reservoir can form, and maybe even attract critters like termites who also need some amount of water to survive. This hypothesis explains both how you could get a whole field of fairy circles evenly spaced across the desert, as well as why we only see them in this narrow strip of desert. There's just the right amount of rainfall to both form the reservoirs and force the grasses to compete. But it also has its problems. For instance, scientists in the termite camp pointed out the grasses seem to die off during times when the soil is relatively moist, not when it's dry and competition for water would be the highest. So which idea do you like better, termites or plants? Go ahead and think about it while we show you this ad to keep the lights on.
This SciShow video is supported by Delete Me, the hands-free subscription service that removes your personal information from hundreds of data broker and people search sites. Delete Me is trusted by medical providers, judges, podcast hosts, and our executive producer, Nicole. She signed up this year and said they've already reviewed over 900 records and begun removing them. And by they, I mean real people available for custom requests and help when you need it. They use their own tech and and don't outsource to third parties so your data stays safe. To sign up for their service, use the QR code on screen or go to joindeleteme.com/SciShow and use the promo code SciShow at checkout. You'll get 20% off Delete Me US consumer plans.
So researchers sparred over these ideas for years. And then in 2017, one team wandered up to the controversy like, hey, what if everyone's kind of right? First, the team ran some simulations of termite colony interactions. What happens when two expanding nests finally encroach on each other's territory? According to these simulations, the bigger colony usually wins and engulfs the smaller one. But when two colonies are about the same size, they can hold out indefinitely and create that aforementioned demilitarized zone. The end result is circles that look a whole lot like real-life fairy circles, with tall grasses growing in the I'm not touching you zones where no termites are foraging. While that sure sounds like a win for Team Termite, the group also found that to really match Namib's grass pattern, you need to factor in water competition too. That's because all of the clumps of grass between the fairy circles also look a lot like they do in a simulation of plants competing for water. Alas, their 2017 paper has still not sealed the deal. As of at least 2023, the termite team and the water competition team were still at it, publishing contradicting papers, still trying to end the debate once and for all. In the meantime, a new set of fairy circles entered the fray, 10,000 kilometers away. In 2016, researchers reported on what appeared to be fairy circles in the Australian outback. And despite forming on a completely different continent, they look almost identical to the Namibian ones. Suddenly, it seemed like fairy circles might not be so rare and special after all. Then, in 2023, a survey of the whole globe found hundreds of patterns that looked like fairy circles spanning Africa, Asia, and Australia. But while they all seem to show up in dry places, they have very different climates and ecosystems. This suggests there's no one cause for all of them. So the mystery of fairy circles is maybe even less solved than ever. But here's what we do know. Whatever's causing them, it's probably a survival strategy. Some way for plants and animals to create a mini stable ecosystem in the midst of a much harsher one. And these tiny actions, termites munching through roots, plants competing for water, get repeated over an entire landscape. In the end, their simple mission creates a massive pattern that almost looks like a deliberate work of art. So while scientists argue amongst themselves, I'm just gonna take in nature's beauty and think of what kind of pattern I'd draw if I were a dragon with poison breath. Or an alien.